Welcome to Carpool Conversations, where our goal is to equip parents to have meaningful, Christ-centered conversations with their kids. I'm Amy Lowe.
And I am Sara Jones. And today we are going to be talking with my friend Patrick, an expert in all things creativity and innovation, and ways that you can create a home that inspires creativity.
And don't we all want to do that, Sara?
Yes.
I want a creative house and to spark that in my kids. And I'm so grateful that Patrick Miles is joining us today, zooming in with us on this show. And Sarah's going to tell us a little bit about Patrick.
Yes, Patrick, thank you so much for being with us today. I met Patrick, I guess 2 years ago at one of our conferences, and he had the coolest tablet taking notes that he could draw and doodle, and it like linked it all and fold really cool folders. And I was like, who is this cool creative guy? So that's how I met him. And he actually, Amy, fun fact, almost started his own family camp one day. He grew up going to family camp, has a love for the ministry, but he actually works with Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
And his official title is Innovation Services. What is, like, how would you say if someone met you on the street and they're like, Patrick, what do you do? You're like, well, I work with Chick-fil-A and Innovation Services.
It's good. Well, first off, hey, everybody. Thank you for having me on this. Excited for our time to talk about family. Nothing more important other than my relationship with my Lord is family. Comes is second there before anything else. So excited to join this conversation. So when someone says, what do you do at Chick-fil-A? I typically will say I'm an innovation strategist. Really, my job is to be I use two analogies to tell people what we do. I'm a consultant, and really I'm a Sherpa. Mm-hmm. So if you think about all those teams that try to scale Mount Everest, and a lot of times they will employ or they'll bring along one of those Napoleon Sherpa, those men who can carry the packs and go up and down the mountain. They live in that area. They have gone up and down the mountain a number of times. And so they're kind of experts at that, and their lungs are built in such a way that they're used to going up and down the mountain. And so what we do is that we're kind of like a Sherpa to project teams across Chick-fil-A who are trying to explore problems or opportunities, and they are wanting to cultivate that and try to figure out what is a great solution that would benefit our customers and others, the communities that we're engaged in. And so our team exists to help walk alongside them. So what resources do they need? Is there a roadmap? Is there a process or methodology that they could utilize to help them get at that faster? And that's really what we're doing. So we're a jack of all trades related to this expertise called innovation creativity.
Love it. And you love WinShape. You're actually a WinShape foster parent for one of our sister ministries. So you know our foundation really well.
I do. I have lots of connections to WinShape, whether that's camps. You mentioned my love of family camp, and attended even a kids camps for many time, worked at 2 different YMCA camps. So I understand the value of camps really well. Of course, Homes, which is part of the foster care outreach that we're in part of.
Amazing.
Marriage, I have some connections there, and all kinds of wonderful things. But love the world of camps and what you guys are focusing in on.
Yeah. So I would love to just start very basic here. I mean, so elementary when it comes to this topic, but I would love for you to just give us a definition so that we can start for creativity and innovation. So how do you define those?
Okay. Such a good question. Innovation is a overused word nowadays. It's on every other commercial you might see on TV, right? Chick-fil-A's formal definition is that innovation is transforming ideas into business value. So that's the formal application of that. And ideas are a super important aspect of innovation effort in general. But what's really important is the value. That's probably the number one ingredient that needs to be part of an innovation effort is that function of like, what is the value we're trying to create for the people who are facing the problem? So I like to define innovation more as a continual pursuit to cultivate and strengthen any kind of opportunity that would help other people to thrive.
That's so neat.
So that's innovation.
Problem solving, right?
But then you asked about, that's right. A lot of problem solving or opportunity seizing. Those are slightly different nuances, but we kind of approach it in a very similar way. But you also asked about the definition of creativity, and I want to hit at that really fast. A lot of times people think when you talk about being creative that you are creative means I'm a artist, I'm a graphic designer, I can play music really well. And while that is a form of creativity, that's an outlet. But really creativity is how it's built in every single person because we are image bearers of our Lord. And God is creator. He's the creator of life, creator of the world. And so if we're image bearers of the great creator, that means we have the ability to create ourselves. And what really we need to do is try to figure out opportunities to unlock that potential to innovate. And that really, we do that by really focusing on what are the unique perspectives and experiences that a person has had in life, and how can you use those as wonderful lenses to wear when you're looking at a problem or you're looking at a world around you, and to say, well, what can I utilize based on my perspectives and experiences to add value to somebody else? And perhaps my lens can be added to other people's perspectives and experiences. And when you bring them together, well, you've just really formed something wonderful and beautiful. And you didn't have to paint a picture or take photographs or anything like that. So you are being creative.
I love that. I've had to learn that over time for sure. I've seen so many other people as being creative because of those things that you mentioned about graphic design or artistic ability, but I've had to discover for myself the different ways that God has made me creative. And I think that's so beautiful to see in a family too, a family unit coming together and using those lenses like you talked about, Patrick. So how does your creativity show up?
I'm a conceptualizer. I love thinking big picture about certain things. I will see situations and ask the question, like why? Why are we doing it this way? Or what if we did something else? I ask 1,000 questions. That hopefully is not too annoying for people that I engage with, but I'm so curious. I lean in with so much curiosity because I'm just so interested in the world around me, and I'm interested in what the Lord has created and done. And I want to learn a little bit more about him and about, those who I engage. So being a conceptualizer and kind of a systems thinker, how all the different pieces are intertwined, allows me to also be able to understand where, if there's an effort going on, let's say Chick-fil-A, or, if you're thinking about in context of your local Chick-fil-A and people are thinking about solving the problem in a drive-through, well, there are so many things that layer in to making that drive-through experience what it is. And so part of my natural bent is to figure out all the connecting pieces where the dependencies exist, so that if we want to create something of wonderful value, that all of the pieces are informed together and can speak into that solution collectively.
I love that. I would love to hear how God has designed you for creativity, but I absolutely love that side of the creativity. What about you, Amy? Do you feel?
One of my strengths is a ranger in the Strength Finder assessment. And so what they say about that person is that I have a great plan, but then something can pop up and be like new information, and I can just move my plan around to incorporate it. And so that's one little way. I'm more of a logistical creative.
So I'm more, someone gave me this verbiage. This is not my own. I'm more of a wow than a how. And it sounds like she's the how, I'm the wow.
That's why we're a good team.
Yes. Yeah. So I like the wow. I don't really care about the how. Let's just.
Yeah, it sounds like, Amy, you have an ability to optimize whatever situation's in front of you, and you can make it work, right? With the strings to pull to make whatever thing comes your way to make it work out and make it smooth. I think some people are not wired that way, and it would throw them off if they had something
My husband says I'm efficient.
Yes.
There you go.
That's
Kudos
good.
to you. We need you. We need people like you in the world. For sure.
Patrick, I would love to know specifically, how do you see creativity in children? Because we are in the trenches of raising children. Our listeners are in the trenches of raising children. So how do you see that come alive for them and children in general? And maybe even in your own children. Questions. I don't know if you have some specific examples from your own.
Sure. So I have 5 children, and then we're also foster parents. So sometimes we have more than 5 kids. So we have lots of experience just engaging children at all different ages. So there's that. People, children are born with curiosity, and you're going to hear that word from my lips numerous times because curiosity is one of these mindsets that is essential to be an innovative or creative person, right? And when children learn when they're first born and they learn how to do things like walk, they're just curious. And if you think about the 5 to 7-year-old, you guys know this. What's their favorite question to ask? Especially moms.
All day long.
Right. Why? Mom, why do I do this? Why? And that's a wonderful question. Yeah. And for some reason, there's like this cliff at around the age of 7 that begins to just plummet. For some reason, children and even adults begin to stop asking that question. Why? And we maybe ask different questions like what or how or why not. But they are less curious on why things are what they are, why they're called what they are. And it's an unfortunate, I guess, habit that I think humanity has just built inside of our natural tendencies. So for me, I think the curiosity of a child is gold. And if there's some sort of way that you can foster to make that creativity longer and last longer and retain it or either respark it, then I think that is something that could be really valuable. There's a wonderful person, Warren Berger is his name. He has a wonderful book called A More Beautiful Question. And I would, definitely recommend it to everybody out there. He is a expert at asking questions. And he and a colleague of his basically did a whole study about this around children and that cliff that happened. And they learned that they went from more open-ended questions to more questions that really have to deal with like facts and figures. And that shift it tends to make us think more about specific lanes and figures. And that sometimes can limit our curiosity. So part of the issue of why I think that curiosity needle is lowered as people get older, some of that is up to us as adults. We kind of cultivate environments where we want our children to be really safe, right? If you think about when children are first learning how to ride a bicycle, they're excited. They're curious about it, wanting to do it, and they get on there. Now they're scared as can be. And we provide the safety nets, of course, of helmets and shoulder pads sometimes. And maybe you'll see some kids in full hockey outfits, but we put them on the bike with training wheels and we give them abilities to go ride, and we're sitting there holding on to it. And yet we're cheerleading them and all that. Eventually, right, we keep on doing it. They'll fall. We encourage them to get back up and try it again and over and over and over again. It's the same sort of thing in general in kind of life. But we have a tendency as adults to, especially in today's world, where we're adding a little bit too many safety places, where we're not letting go of the bicycles in our children's lives and not allowing them to fall. And that falling down is what really helps people to know that they can get back up. And that is learning. Failure is what people can often see that as. It's like, I just don't want them to fail. Well, actually, failing is okay. It's actually a wonderful, beautiful tool to help people unlock new learning and new opportunity down the road. So I would say if you can cultivate environments that allow your children to try something and they might fail, that's okay. And giving them the safety to fail without judgment.
That's good.
That's one big thing. I think another is this information overload in today's world. Yeah. We have a lot of information being bombarded on top of children. And maybe sometimes we're just too consumed and the kids are getting overwhelmed. And so they resort to just simple facts. So something that we've done in our family, and I'm not saying this is necessarily perfect for everybody, but we have limited I have 5 kids. So we've limited our children to being able to do one after school activity in one semester, and then giving space for other kids to have their turn. And instead of having to drive 4 or 5 of our children to 4 or 5 different activities, we're limiting them to only one season and one activity. And then they have the freedom of the other seasons in the year to just wonder and explore and to be curious about just the natural things around them. I think giving them that time and space is really helpful. So that's another thing I would recommend.
Love that.
I love that too. My kids are 14 and 11, and it's so fun when they come up with things. Like the other day, Jack made up this game. He just made it up. He had a box. He had some cardboard. He made up a game. And we just sit at the kitchen table and play it. And he directs us and gives us questions. And there's different like routes you can take. But he made it all up. And I just love that we take the time to do those kind of things and to give them the space to have the freedom to come up with those kind of ideas and then bring them to life and make it a really fun activity. And I know that that's harder and harder to do the busier that we get. Just like you said, Patrick, we're so busy. So why do you think creativity and innovation and problem solving are important things for us to cultivate in our house?
I'll put it this way, the trajectory of tomorrow, right, is really shaped by the curiosity of our kids today. And I think that, the world is never going to run out of problems. I think God tells us that we're always going to have problems in our midst. But having young people who can grow into this capacity to ask the questions, gosh, how might we solve this problem? Or, boy, what if we could do this? Just those what ifs, how might we type of questions, if you cultivate those, are going to translate into some wonderful future impact. I also think this element of innovation creativity helps to prepare young people for the workforce or workplace, which is heavily relies on collaboration. And being creative and innovative you need to be collaborative. You need to be able to work with others and build empathy around other people as well. There is a new innovation that Chick-fil-A has. It's called Penny Cake. Some of you guys in WinShape might be familiar with this. Penny Cake is a series of board games and family-focused activity sets. And Chick-fil-A owns this. So we are literally competing against Mattel and Hasbro in that kind of family time space. Well, we have our own line of activities that was birthed out of really the little small activities we used to put in the kids' meals. And we used to put them in there in order to focus, instead of just like a little trinket, we wanted to foster an opportunity for families when they're sitting in our dining room tables to have community. So what could we do to put a little activity in the bag and they pull it out and they can have some great conversations around their Chick-fil-A sandwiches and nuggets at the dining tables. And it worked. People loved it and it resonated so much with families. And then we said to ourselves, why are we only limiting ourselves to just the dining table experience at our Chick-fil-A? How can we provide that same opportunity for them back at home? Well, that's what sort of sparked this thought of like, whoa, what if we had more enhanced activities that they could utilize on car trips or on, at their own table in their own dining room. And so we cultivated going from these small little activities in the bags to much more enhanced aspects. So we seized on an opportunity that was right in front of us, but we just had to have the vision and the curiosity to see it, that there was something out there in a lane that we could kind of walk down.
And as a parent, we don't do technology. So for our kids, I carry a deck of cards in my purse at all times. And if we're out to dinner as a family and we're waiting for our food, we're playing Go Fish or some sort of card game. So actually parents are desperate for anything other than like a show, YouTube Kids. Nothing against it, but we just have chosen for our family that we are not going to look at a device or technology at the dinner table. We're actually going to engage in conversation. And what better way to bring the family together at the table, make eye contact, you're laughing. I go back to my childhood immediately as soon as the cards come out. And we're a very competitive family. So healthy competition. We all make a vow not to get mad or angry if you lose. But yeah, you try. Yeah, that's right. So I love that you brought that element into the whole thing. So I would love to know, Patrick, what benefits have you seen in your home from a parenting mindset of innovation and problem-solving approach?
In my home that I've seen in other people's homes, is connection within a family unit, right? If you present your family with a challenge, first off, you're entrusting your entire family to that challenge, and you're being transparent about maybe a challenge that your own family is facing. Transparency itself is a tremendous opportunity just for your family to connect and bond, but then you're also giving them an opportunity to respond to that challenge and giving them space to lend in their own perspective, right? So, in God's word, it says that anybody who believes that Jesus is their Savior is really considered not only a disciple of the Lord, but they're considered a saint. And we have to listen to one another, and that is even in our family. So if my child, 11-year-old child, is a believer in Christ, well, God might be speaking to me through my child. And so I need to give my child the ability and space and freedom to be able to voice out what perhaps God is speaking into her that will benefit me, right? And it could be a challenge that I'm wrestling with, and the answer is found through the voice of my 11-year-old. And so I just have to have the courage and, the channel by which I can allow my children to speak into that. Also, the empathy is a massive win. If we can cultivate opportunities for creativity and innovation within a family unit, then you're going to build more empathetic citizens, right? So when they see things on the news or they hear things in their history books, or even in whatever's happening in current affairs, they would be able to respond to some of those situations with a way to say, well, instead of judging what's happening out there, I'm going to start to ask really important questions to understand and unpack the situation, the context around it, so that I would have better understanding and better empathy for what they're experiencing. And I would say for the future wives out there, if you can cultivate that early with your sons, then think about the future where wow, wives come to their future husbands with problems, and they're not going to necessarily just straight up hear solutions right away. They're going to start to hear questions related to help me unpack that. I'm so sorry you're facing that problem. Tell me more what's going on. Let me live it out. Can I? Yeah. That's the whole point. Empathy is a runway. It's a runway for us to really be creative. You have to have empathy.
I love that you've mentioned empathy. We haven't done empathy for a podcast, but we will eventually. It is on the list. And I recently read where it says empathy is the root of all true connection to others. It's just to be empathetic.
That's right.
So it's a good tool to have for sure in parenting. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. I want to shift a minute to mindset around this. I love the founder of Spanx. Her name is Sara Blakely. And I recently read an article where she talks about, she was 16 years old. She was going through a really hard time in her life. Her dad gifted her cassette tapes. I don't know, kids don't even know what a cassette tape is, but it was this guy, his name is Dr. Wayne Dyer. And she said it talked about in the cassettes how to be a no limit person. And she said for the first time ever that she learned how to think and not what to think. Like it was the first time that had ever been introduced to her. And I think as parents, I know I'm guilty of this. I tell my kids what to think. I'm telling them what to think, not how to think for themselves. And so that really encouraged me to be like, I could help them be a voice of how to think, not what to think. This whole I had a mindset shift. And then she also said, which I know you're going to love this. She recently, she said anytime she's creating something new, a new product, packaging, new ideas, she says she lets her inner 8-year-old take the lead, which I think is so interesting.
Wonderful.
She says she always leads down a path of things like cartoons, bubblegum, 70s music, sneakers, hearts, my favorite blue jeans. She says it's why I try to make everything I do fun and playful. If you're stuck in a creative rut, think back to what the 8-year-old in you would say. And I just love that. She said, I bet you have the best ideas. End quote. Yeah. So Patrick, do you have any insights on ways that we can help our kids learn to think for themselves?
Well, I love the story of Sara. The fact that I even know what Spanx is.
Good job, Patrick.
I know.
Yeah.
Yes, it's amazing, right? I love what she was just saying there too. I've heard her talk about like the importance of failure, right? And actually being okay with that. I'm sitting here talking to you guys from Hatch. Hatch is the name of our 30,000 square foot innovation space and center at the Chick-fil-A Support Center. It's the place where we help teams, give them a dedicated space to be creative and think about the problems that we're solving. Within this center is a smaller lab that we call the Imagine Lab. And inside that lab, we have an Airstream, right, trailer. We have these clouds that are in the sky, a rocket ship. There's fake grass. There are swing sets inside this space. And lighting and the sound can all be manipulated. And why? Why do we do this? And oftentimes you'll see business executives swinging on the swing set, perhaps wearing clothing that we've given them or in order to help them assume a different, like maybe role or to think back to their childhood.
Love it.
And we do that to set up an environment to allow their minds to be free. So there are studies out there, and maybe put it this way. When you think of those ideas that come to mind for you all, where oftentimes do you find yourselves, like physically? Where do you see yourselves when sometimes you get ideas? Well, oftentimes it's in the midst of activities like going for a run or a walk. Maybe I'm in the middle of showering and then boom, there's an idea comes to my mind. Right? Well, swinging on a swing set is another one of those things. And when I was growing up in the 70s and the 80s, this is when Star Wars was first coming out, the swing set was not a swing set. It was an X-Wing fighter. And I was Luke Skywalker, battling the dark side of the Force, right?
Yeah.
And so allowing yourselves to have things like that sparks your creativity and imagination. And if you can even provide environments where you can manipulate some of the aspects, and you can do this naturally by even doing things like, hey, family, let's go on a walk. And maybe in your back pocket, carry a long string or rope, a piece of rope. And when you get to someplace in a park, have everybody stop and just observe. Let's talk about something. What are some things that you recognize or see that you observe in this environment right now, just all around you? You say trees and clouds and the grass and people playing and the ice cream truck going down the road and all that sort of stuff. All right, then you say, okay, then you pull out your string and you put it on the ground and you form a little circle into it. And I say, okay, you just looked at the macro. Let's look at this small. Let's just in this circle now do the same thing. What do you see just within the lens of the circle? What stands out to you? And normally, this little piece of grass that perhaps you would just walk upon if you were just walking in the park now becomes an incredible environment that you have focused attention on. And you've allowed your family to have a little bit of time to dig into something that was originally complacent. And they start to say, wait a minute, I see a couple ants going through the grass blades. And there's these other little elements that are built within the grass. And it opens up these opportunities for conversation. And you've allowed them to observe life in a different way just by limiting a focus. It sounds similar to what Sara was talking about, is cultivating environments and opportunities for you to just observe life in a different way.
That's so new mindset, a new way of looking at something. When my little guy was growing up, a little younger than he is now, we had a swing set, and he would love to go out and swing and talk the whole time that he was swinging. And my mother-in-law would come in town, and he'd say, "Let's go out and swing, Granny Lynn." And she'd say, "Okay, let me grab my book." And he said, "Oh, you don't need your book. We don't need your book, because I'm going to talk to you the entire time." And so definitely getting outside and taking walks. We do that all the time, because that really does help you talk about things because you're in a different environment and inspired in different ways. So talk to us, Patrick, about.
Well, and your grandchildren, like you're thinking about Granny, right? They're wonderful tools to help you. They don't see your children necessarily every single day. And so just having that opportunity for your grandparents to ask your own children questions, it allows the kids to be able to answer things that you've taken for granted because you see them every single day. They are able to actually unpack, experience that they've had in life to somebody else. And that's
a whole new
really
person
gold
to talk to and tell them all your thoughts. Yep. So talk to us, Patrick, about advice for starting this in the home. We've talked about outside. What about inside the home, especially for those people that maybe would consider themselves not as creative? Help us out and give us some low-hanging fruit, maybe some starting points for inside the house.
So other than Penny Cake, which has some tools that you can use, I'm not trying to sell you.
No, they're great tools.
I'm already
maybe
sold.
I am.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's a couple great tools that you have probably sitting right around you. And if you have children, I would guarantee that you probably have Legos.
Yeah, everywhere.
Lots of Legos.
Step on them all the time.
Right. Use them as a way to help your family members to form some of the perspectives by giving them a chance to answer a question and build a model based on the question. So think of yourself as like a chat GPT, and you're going to prompt them with a question like, what could we do? What is a way that maybe our family can cultivate our next vacation? What is one aspect of our family's next vacation that you feel like should be included? I want you to build a model that represents what is one thing we can do, and give them head down space to just take any of those pieces and snap them together, and to give meaning. This is the key part, is to give meaning to any part of those Lego bricks. So maybe there's a Lego brick that's the color of red, and there's a green bushy type of Lego brick. And by clicking on it, they put something together. And me looking at it, I might be like,
what is that? Yeah.
What is that? Right? It's a cool model that your child built. But the model is just a representation of a story, of a perspective that they have locked inside their brain. And you are giving them a chance that through the model, you'll be able to have them tell the story about it. It's just like if I were to ask you to doodle on a sticky note, right? You can probably draw a stick figure, and the stick figure is great. But that stick figure probably is doing something or telling a story, and you want to unpack that. That's the same thing with a Lego model. That's a wonderful, really quick way to allow people to get creative really fast, is by assigning meaning and value to certain colors of Lego bricks, for example. Another wonderful, really quick tool that you can use to unlock perspective is a tool we say yes and. It's like a method. So if you have a challenge or a thought, to get everybody's input on something, you could present a challenge to your entire family and have everybody stand in a circle, all right? And what you do is you just introduce that topic and say, here's a good example. What is the future if you could cultivate the future refrigerator of 2050, the year's 2050, and the refrigerator has evolved into the greatest thing in the world, what could it be? And Susan, we're going to start with you. And Susan is going to say one thing about this new refrigerator in 2050 that exists. And maybe she says like, well, what I can see in the refrigerator is instead of just water coming out, maybe there is Kool-Aid, and I have a spout for Kool-Aid. The next person in line can go, yes. And not only does it have Kool-Aid, but there's actually, a window that allows me to see all of the things inside of the refrigerator. And the next person says, yes, not only is there Kool-Aid in the window, but it also allows me, and you keep on adding little pieces from every single person, and you're contributing as a collective kind of family unit into this new envisioned idea. At the very end, you can relay the entire story like you do in telephone. And suddenly you will have created this really unique, wonderful, original idea that you never would have thought of if you did it just by yourself.
Yeah.
You unlocked the creativity by allowing everybody to add a little flavor into that, or ingredient, if you will, into this idea that's become a wonderful recipe that's unique. And then you can actually ask the same question, start with somebody else, and do it again, and you'll come out with a completely different creative idea that you've done together, collaborated together on. Two really simple, wonderful ways. It really doesn't take a lot to be or foster creativity. You can start very small, and you can even start slowly. And I'll just say the last one. The last one is ask questions.
Yeah.
Your kids model your behavior. And if you as an adult are only seeing yourself as the subject matter expert in life, then they probably are going to follow that same footsteps. But if you model curiosity and wonder about the world around them, then they will in turn begin to pick up on those traits and want to ask questions and begin to wonder as well.
Yeah, Patrick, we talked about last week, you told me about the yes and game. So I went home that night and did it with my kids. And I did the topic for like 5 years from now, we're going on a family vacation. We're going to save our money. Let's dream together. And this game is called Yes and. One, everyone's idea is accepted by saying yes, is affirming for them. So safe place for dopey ideas, yes, and then you build on it. So one child was like, Disney, I always wanted to go to Disney. One child was like, tropical Jamaica. I was like, where did you ever hear Jamaica? Must have been the Olympics, I guess. But one was Jamaica. So we landed on yes and a cruise where Disney goes to Jamaica. It was like, that's actually a thing. Yeah. It was so fun to see their like imaginations come alive. So parents listening, you've got to do this yes and thing.
We did that with our dream house, and it was so fun. I mean, we had a helipad and all kinds of things. So yeah, any and every idea you can dream it up.
It kind of goes back to that, like if you can dream it, like let's go for it. You know, it's like let's dream together as a family, and what like a family bonding moment to just. It was fun too. It was fun, and we laughed and we loved it. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Awesome. You're so welcome.
So
I love
Patrick, our last question, and before we wrap, as I would love to know any tips for making mundane daily rhythms into problem-solving, innovating moments our kids can build on. And I say mundane because really sometimes parenting, you're living kind of the same day over and over again. So how can we create those into problem-solving moments for our kids?
Oh, that's a great question. I always think about, dinner time.
Yeah.
I come home from work and my wife has cooked her 8,000th meal for our family. And it's just this mundane task that she just has to get done. And I wonder, right? I always wonder, like, is there an opportunity there where you, every once in a while, if you allow yourself some freedom for there to be a mess and for you to have the courage and risk to potentially allow your children to be involved in cooking a meal.
Yes.
Is to maybe present opportunities for things like, hey, kids, I'm going to give you the opportunity to create, our family dinner on Thursday night. And I'm going to give you maybe some parameters so that way you're not getting poisoned. But we're going to give you these ingredients that we know are all safe. And you know what? I'm going to give you the freedom to put them together in the ways you think you want to. And I'll be here to help support you, just so, again, we can help you turn on the oven and all the things you feel like you need to do. But I'm going to let you do it. And while that meal, the result, the deliverable that they might have, as a parent, you're going to eat it. You're going to be like, oh, this is the best tasting meal I've ever had in my life. Of course you are. But at the same time, if it tastes horrible, it's okay. Because what you're doing, even by giving them that space and energy and time and ability, is allowing them to enter into a place of risk and mess. When Hatch, the center, was first created, Dan Cathy, who is the CEO, the son of the founder, Truett Cathy, to launch this space, it was just this empty warehouse. And inside the warehouse was 15-foot gigantic white egg and a bunch of paint cans. And he brought his leadership team up there and he unpopped the cans and he said, on the count of 3, we're going to douse this egg with paint. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And just think about like a cartoon, all this paint just splattering this egg, going all over the place, falling on them, on their clothes, going onto the floor, dripping all over the place, but also getting on this egg canvas. All right. And he used this as a word picture to help them to say, listen, at Chick-fil-A, we're kind of known for getting professional and for doing things really well and all that. This space that we're going to cultivate, it's not just about the space. It's about the way of working and about the way of pursuing. We need to make sure that we cultivate not just in a space, but a behavior and a rhythm to allow ourselves to get messy, to go spill the paint. Because while there might be paint on the floor and on ourselves, when you look up at the canvas, you're going to see a wonderful, beautiful new creation that you never would have created if you didn't allow the mess to happen. So in families, I would say that example of a meal, allowing your kids to cook, it's like your own canvas. You're allowing children to form a beautiful thing, work of art that is going to be going through your mouth. But that is going to unlock this wonderful behavior and mentality and rhythm that allows children to begin to explore and be curious and want to create and want to test, want to put themselves into risky situations, and ultimately to do something that they hope will see as a really wonderful value. If it doesn't work, hey, there's always next Thursday. They can take what they learned, twist it around a little bit, and then make next Thursday's meal slightly better. And you're just giving them that opportunity and space to be creative, but to fall off their bicycle and get back up again.
And cultivating a space where you can allow them to fail. You mentioned a little bit how Sara Blakely's dad at dinner would ask, what did you fail at today? And I asked my daughter and she was like, what? Fail? I failed at nothing today. And I was like, well, you failed the task. Fail at something every day. Yeah. She was like, you as my mother want me to fail? I was like, I actually do. I want you to fail at something because that's how we learn. Really, that's how we learn.
Yeah.
But Sara, here's the question, is that you also have to answer that question. So you have to allow your child to ask you, well, Mom, how did you fail today?
A lot.
And you have to give your own space and time and thinking to answer that question and actually be okay with it as well.
Okay. Yeah. I'll go home and do that.
Patrick, we've really enjoyed spending time with you today, giving us all the tips to help make our home more creative. And I'm sure that everyone listening is going to take a little nugget and bring it back to their house, and we'll see what happens as a result. But at the end of every one of our podcasts, Patrick, we ask a question. And again, it's exactly what you were saying, to foster that conversation around the dinner table or in the carpool line. And today our question is, who is the most creative person you know and why? So let's see what they say. And then the beauty of this is the following up of it. Then you turn the question on them and say, in what ways are you creative? And I can so imagine this being a time where we go around the whole dinner table and share with each other how we see each other being creative. So it's definitely one question that we hope will jumpstart many other conversations around the table. And we hope that it's helpful. And again, Patrick, thanks for coming on the show with us today and giving us all your tips. And we will look forward to chatting next time on the podcast.
Thanks, guys. Bye.